Hey, I'm your host Christy from Looming Crafted Fiber Arts, and today we're going to do our second part of our fading winter cowl. This cowl is very lacy, open in a lot of places, intended to be lightweight for warmer weather wear or for early fall or late spring. And you can even do it with a lower weight of yarn. I'm working with a number 3 if you watched the introduction. If you hadn't, I encourage you to go back because the cast on is pretty involved. It takes some time to do the cast on. So today we're going to be doing the first 3 rows after the cast on, which will come down to about right here before we start this section. Now I mentioned last week that I was going to make some changes here. And I hadn't tore this out yet and changed it because I wanted to show y'all what I was talking about. This is a few rows of figure 8 stitch. Okay, I like to use figure 8 in some of my projects because it gives it just a slight laciness and gives it texture. But sometimes, or a lot of times, I found out, and I've done several of these projects where I combine a lot of stitches and stitch combinations. And a figure 8 stitch sometimes just does not play nicely with their stitches when you go to switch and go back around again. And for one reason, that's because of the jog issue that you have sometimes, like when you're doing color work and changing colors or changing stitches, you have a jog issue because actually when you're working in the round, it's not a complete circle, you're actually working in a spiral whether you realize it or not as you're going around, because you're going up a row each time. It's like stair steps kind of each time you go back to peg 1. So what I had run into, and I want to show this to y'all so you'll know. I've run into some places where I have larger open areas here than I intended, and I don't like that, and I don't want y'all to have that problem. I want y'all to have a successful project when you get done, and I don't like the way it looks, and I've tried different methods to fix it. If anybody knows of a method that's surefire that works, let me know. I've tried different methods and nothing I've tried so far. One row it worked out okay. I think it's because it played well with the stitches for the next row. But a couple other rows I did the figure 8 and it just didn't work out right. So I have spent this week working on an alternative, and I'm going to show you my alternative on my little 3/8 gauge here, Cindy Wood. This is a 4-row repeat, and it is going to be a little lacier and a little bit more length to it than the figure 8, but that's okay, it doesn't matter. I think this is nice. It's in a 3-weight just like this one. It's a little thicker 3-weight, but anyway, I think this will be a nice little addition to it instead of the figure 8, and it'll work well when I change over to the next stitch below it. There is one more thing I want to mention before I get started on this next row 1 through 3. If you've noticed, this border here, this cast on, wants to curl down a little bit like that, wants to roll just a little bit. We're going to fix that. I'll incorporate a video in here. I'm either going to try washing it and steaming it, or I'm just and setting it, or I'm just going to steam it and set it, just flat it out a little bit. So that's not going to be an issue. We will work a way out to fix that where it'll be flatter, and it won't be an issue for you. So, and when I get back to week 3, part 3, I will have this tore down and have this incorporated into it. And I have everything else wrote down so far as I've got for all my rows, so I know what I'm doing, you know, from this point on. Everything else will be the same except for the figure 8s. That's going to be different. But this will be the stitch we'll be using instead of the figure 8. There, you can see it a little better there. And we'll just be working on it as we go, but hopefully I'll have that incorporated in there. So we're going to get started. Now, this row 1 through 3 for part 2 is Basic stitches you all know if you've been loom knitting very long, and you should not have no problem with whatsoever, because all it consists of is knits and purls. Okay? So I'm going to tell you what each row is as I do them, and if you already know how to do that stitch, run with it. You ain't going to watch this whole video. That's entirely up to you. If you don't, I'm going to do a few examples for somebody if they don't know how, just to be on the safe side, because you never know who might be watching this that might want to be ambitious and try it. So, and that's perfectly fine. So the first row, row 1, is going to be all E-wraps. That's it. All the way around your loom. And for you to know what size the loom is and the peg amount, what loom I use and all that, you need to go back and watch the introduction video. I will leave a link either at the top and in the description back to it. So I highly encourage you to go back and watch it first if you're going to try this project. So we're just going to do an E-wrap, and we're coming from, just ignore all this because this is a sample I showed you. We're coming from the last peg, if you'd already went around in the round and finished your cast on, and we're just going to go behind that first peg, wrap around like a little E, just like that, and then we're going to knit it off. Go to the next peg, wrap around like a little E, and knit it off. Now, some people wrap their whole loom. Sometimes you get laddering if you do that. I highly suggest not doing that. I suggest either wrapping each one individually or wrapping 2 or 3 at a time, like this, and knitting them off, and then wrapping the next 2 or 3, knitting them off until you get back to peg 1. I hardly ever wrap the whole loom because I have trouble with laddering if I do that, and I don't. It's just, even though it might take a little more time to wrap each one, it pays off because you don't want to have to go back and worry about all that laddering that went on, okay? Okay, so, first row, row 1, all E-wrap. E-wrap all the way around every peg, okay? Now, I'm not going to do it because I've already told you, so I'm going to go back here and I'm going to take this off, and we're going to go to row 2. To save time. So let's pretend I've already got all my E-wraps done. Row 2, we're going to, I need to take this one off too. We're going to do a knit 1, purl 1, and the knit is going to be an E-wrap. Okay, so you're coming from the last peg, and you are going to E-wrap like I showed you a little while ago. So you're going to E-wrap 1, knit purl 1. I got my tongue tied today. Okay, so E-wrap 1, purl 1, and you're going to do that alternating E-wrap 1, purl 1, all the way around the loom. Okay, so that's row 2. Knit 1, purl 1 using the E-wrap. Row 3. Let me take these off real quick because we're going to pretend I've already got it done to save time, because the next video I'm going to have to spend a little more time with you. Okay, row 3. Since we knit 1, purl 1, alternating all the way around the loom, for row 2, we're going to purl 1, knit 1. So for row 3, when you get back to peg 1, we're going to purl. We'll put your working yarn underneath, pull your new loop up, take the old loop off, and put the new loop back on. So we're going to purl, and then we're going to knit, which is again an E-wrap knit stitch. And you're going to do this all the way around the loom. So purl again and knit. So basically what you're doing for rows 2 and 3 is the seed stitch. Okay? And that's all there is to it for rows 1 through 3. So before I go, let's recap. Row 1, all E-wrap. Row 2, knit 1, purl 1, knit stitch being the E-wrap stitch. Row 3, you're going to do the opposite, and you're going to purl 1, knit 1 of row 2, and the knit again being the E-wrap knit stitch, which row 2 and 3 is equal to the seed stitch. So that's all you do for the next 3 rows. And then next Tuesday, we will come back and start this section. Okay? And in the meantime, I'm probably going to put up this before Tuesday as a stitch in my stitch playlist here on YouTube. And that way, if you want to go ahead and practice it, you can. If you want to go ahead and add it, you can. I'm going to do 4. It'll be a 4-row repeat for the stitch, so it'll just be 4 rows, you know. You won't repeat it, you'll just do the 4 rows of the stitch for this project next after you do rows 1 through 3. But if you'd rather wait for me and let me demonstrate it for the cowl, I will. And 2, if you come back and watch the video next week, I will have it already on the cowl so you can see what it's going to look like. So that's up to you. I'm just letting you know to save you some time from having to watch me if you don't want to. But that's it for today. And I hope that your cowl's starting to look like a cowl once you get these 3 rows done. And when we get this, I think you're going to really start seeing more of how it's going to look. And I will see you next week. Have a great day. Bye-bye.